Cold open midnight to 0:50. Imagine a law is passed today. On paper, it's meant to help ordinary people. But by tomorrow, the money behind it has already decided who wins, who loses, and who stays in power. You'll never see it on the news. You might not even notice it in your daily life. Yet this invisible force shapes every policy, every budget, every financial crisis. Money doesn't just follow policy, it turns it into power. Setup 0:50 to 2:30. It sounds cynical, but it's not conspiracy. It's math. It's rules. It's incentives. Governments print laws. Markets print consequences. And somewhere in between sits money, liquid, adaptable, invisible. Here's the question that matters. Why do some policies fail spectacularly while others quietly reinforce the status quo? Why does a tax cut for the wealthy get spent differently than one for the poor? Why do interest rate changes rattle markets faster than elections? Because policy doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in a financial ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, money is the engine that turns intentions into outcomes. Step 1. How money interacts with policy. 2:30 to 5:30. Let's break it down. When a government introduces a policy, say a stimulus package, the first step isn't distribution. It's financing. Governments borrow, tax, or print money. That money flows through the economy. But here's the catch. It doesn't flow evenly. Banks, corporations, and investors see it first. Ordinary people see it last or not at all. This is called financial first-mover advantage. It's why the stock market often climbs before citizens feel the impact of economic relief. Take the 2008 crisis. Banks got emergency liquidity overnight. Ordinary households waited months or years. The policy existed to stabilize the economy, but money's path determined who actually benefited. The irony? Policies can claim fairness, yet the financial network rewrites reality. Step 2. Policy shapes incentives. Money amplifies them. 5:30 to 8 o'clock. Policy sets the rules. Money exploits them. When a government lowers interest rates, it's supposed to encourage borrowing and spending. But in practice, banks, hedge funds, and large investors are the first to act. They buy assets, inflate prices, and extract wealth before the average consumer even notices. A tax incentive for small businesses might sound equitable, but the money often finds a shortcut. Large corporations can hire armies of accountants and lawyers to maximize benefits. Small businesses can't. Here's the takeaway. Policy defines opportunity. Money defines access. Without understanding both, you're only seeing half the story. Step 3. The uncomfortable math. 8 to 11 o'clock. Now let's get technical, but stay simple. Every dollar of stimulus, tax break, or quantitative easing has a multiplier effect. Economists call it the velocity of money, how fast money circulates. But the velocity isn't uniform. Some dollars travel fast, some slow, some never leave the bank vault. Imagine $1 billion injected into the economy. The top 1% might see a 10% return almost immediately. Middle-class households might see 0.1%. The difference isn't luck. It's systemic leverage. Policy promised broad help. Money allocated it narrowly. And here's the kicker. Over time, these small advantages compound. Policies meant to be neutral can end up reshaping wealth distribution entirely. The system looks democratic, but the math quietly entrenches power. Step 4. Hype versus reality. 11 to 13:30. Politicians love to talk about stimulus, growth, and investment in the people. Headlines scream about who benefits. But here's reality. Money moves faster than politics. Interest rate cuts. Market rallies. Bailouts. Stocks soar. New regulations. Big banks find loopholes. Ordinary citizens? They react months later, often with no leverage. This mismatch creates a theater of action. Policy announces intentions. Markets deliver outcomes. People just watch, thinking policy is the hero or the villain without seeing the puppet strings. Step 5. Zoom out. Global implications. 13:30 to 16:30. The stakes get bigger when we look globally. Governments aren't just competing for votes, they're competing for capital. Foreign investors, international banks, multinational corporations, they chase policies that maximize returns. A small policy tweak in one country can trigger currency swings across continents. A tax reform in the US can shape borrowing costs in Brazil. Why? Because money flows toward the highest perceived advantage, and policy acts as the signpost. The result: the global economy becomes a chessboard where the pieces are dollars, euros, and yuan. Players move them subtly, but the consequences are real and often invisible to citizens. Step 6. Absurdity and quiet irony. 1630 to 1830. Here's a thought. The same system that promises fairness often magnifies inequality. Policy says, we'll level the playing field. Money says, I'll decide who touches the ball first. It's almost comedic. Laws are passed in debates. Charts are made. Analysts speculate endlessly. Meanwhile, money quietly ignores the script and rewrites the ending. And yet, most people never question it. They assume the system works because they see rules, hearings, and press releases. They don't see the invisible hand of financial leverage, quietly translating policy into concentrated power. Conclusion/thought-provoking close. 1830 to 2000 hours. So what's the takeaway? Policy alone doesn't determine outcomes. Power flows where money moves, and money doesn't follow fairness, it follows advantage. The next time you hear about a new law, a stimulus, or a central bank decision, remember, the headlines tell a story. The flow of money tells another. One is visible. The other quietly shapes who wins and who loses every single time. And maybe the real question isn't whether policy works, but who gets to define works in the first place.